What's up, everybody? I am Brett L. Pape. That's Coach Bruce, and this is the Coach Approach. Morning, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Hopefully, everyone turned their clocks back or didn't have to, like you guys in Arizona. But here we are. We got extra hour of sleep, and I don't know about you, Coach, but I sure needed it.
Oh, I definitely needed it. Went out with some friends last night and kicked off a good weekend, and went out Friday night, went out again last night. So it's good. It's good to have that extra hour of sleep, man, this
I
morning.
got to tell you, you sent me that text. I don't know if I responded because I wasn't sure if I could read at that point. But that was a nice picture you have of your bar. I'll tell you, that's I would be in trouble if I had that bar in my just at my fingertips anytime I wanted. That was pretty impressive looking.
Yeah, it gets scary, that's for sure.
All right, hey, let's jump right into this. Before we get into the games, let's talk about the games that we're not going to have or the team's not playing. No Denver, which is kind of disappointing the way Javonte Williams is playing. Obviously, Detroit, they're not playing, and you've got a top receiver, a top tight end, and now you have a pretty damn good running back in fantasy. So that hurts. Jacksonville's out, and so is San Francisco. So with that being said, let's get right into our Sunday morning 10 a.m. slate. And I'll tell you what, Coach, we talked about it briefly before we kicked off the show. These quarterbacks that we get to see play this week, woo, it's going to – I'm taking the under on a hell of a lot of games because of what we're looking at the quarterback position. But let's jump right into Minnesota Vikings 4-4 at the Atlanta Falcons 4-4. I like Atlanta, Coach. I feel like with no Kirk Cousins, I feel like with the quarterback room being a little more settled than the other side of the ball with Atlanta, I like Atlanta winning 24-21. How do you see it, Coach?
Yeah, I've got Atlanta winning 23-13. I think you're going to get to the breakdown, but I think Jaron Hall, rookie quarterback playing, Atlanta at least is moving the ball, and Heineke gives them a little bit more in the passing game. So I've got Falcons winning this one as well.
All right, Falcons, the spread is Falcons minus 3.5. Over and under is 37.5. I think with the spread, I got Minnesota, and then I have the over, which is kind of probably not the best decision I've made at 7:30 in the morning on a Sunday, but we'll get right into it. Let's get into start and sits. Quarterback room for Minnesota. Jaron Hall, rookie quarterback out of BYU, is set to start for the injured Kirk Cousins. There is no Josh Dobbs this week. So we get to see what Jaron Hall is all about, but I am not starting him. Atlanta is 16th in the league in fantasy points per game and 8th in yards allowed to quarterbacks, but Jaron Hall is not a start for me. And in the running back room, Alexander Madison's kind of been the lead back all year long, but I'm kind of thinking Cam Akers is going to get more. And I would feel okay starting Cam Akers today. I think he gets in the end zone at some point. At the wide receiver room, I just think Jordan Addison is too talented to not make a big play at some point today. With no Justin Jefferson, somebody's got to make something happen. And I think Jordan Addison gets in the end zone. Tight ends, what do they always talk about with young quarterbacks? Number one person they want to go to is a tight end. With Jaron Hall, I like TJ Hockenson today. Other side of the ball for Atlanta, we talked about the quarterback move. Taylor Heineke is now in. I'm so glad I can say Heineke. Last year when we had to have him play so much for Washington, I think I messed that up every week. So at least I'm glad I'm growing. Running back room, you kind of can start both these guys, but obviously running back 6 in the league and Bijan Robinson, you start seeing him get a little more volume last week. So I like Bijan Robinson this week. Receivers, unfortunately, Drake London is out. Van Jefferson is not a play. No one else is a play for me. But that leads us to what we hope to see, and that is a good game out of Kyle Pitts. When you have no Drake London, hopefully Kyle Pitts can get going in the vertical game and in the middle of the field. I like Heineke to Pitts today, so I'm going with Pitts. Anything there you would like to defer on or make some changes, Coach?
No, I think you hit it on the head. I think I'd be okay playing even Jonnu Smith, who's starting to get some volume there. I think you can almost get away with playing both those tight ends this week with Drake London out.
There you go. Let's move on to your first game. Chicago Bears 2-6 at the New Orleans Saints 4-4. Who wins? I got the Saints winning 28-13. How about you, Coach? And then what about the start and sits?
Yeah, we're right there. I got Saints 27-13, so we're only a point difference. So over-under is 41. So obviously I've got them just barely on the under at 40 total points. And the Saints to cover the spread at -8.5 with a 14-point win there. As far as starts go, we can start in the quarterback room. The Saints are 5th in points per game against quarterbacks, 7th in yards passing allowed. They have given up 10 touchdown passes, but also have converted 9 interceptions. So Tyson Badgett playing this week. Hey, he's completing 70% of his passes, which is great, but just 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions. Struggled last week with 2 interceptions, so don't like the matchup for him. In the running back room, it's pick your poison, right? You've got Deontay Foreman, Rashawn Johnson. It was Darrington Evans that actually found the end zone last week. So I don't trust playing anybody in that backfield because you're trying to figure out who's going to get the touches and who's going to get the meaningful touches. So I'm skipping that backfield altogether if I can. Wide receiver room, obviously I'm playing DJ Moore. In Badgett's 2 starts, Moore's been targeted 15 times with 12 catches for 109 yards. So he'll continue to be the go-to guy in the receiving room. And then tight end Cole Kmet, he's converted 10 targets, 10 grabs for 79 yards last week. Big week last week, 5 or more grabs in 3 of the last 5 games. The tight end position is so weak this year that if you've got Cole Kmet, you're probably playing him at tight end 16 this week. For the Saints, quarterback room, Chicago's 27th in fantasy points allowed to the quarterback position, 29th in passing yards allowed. They've given up 17 touchdown passes. Derek Carr has 3 consecutive games over 300 yards. Derek Carr, to me, is a smash start this week. Running back room, Alvin Kamara. He's RB1 in PPR formats with 44 targets and 39 grabs, 3 touchdowns in just 5 games he's played. He's a smash start this week. I'm not starting Jamal Williams. No touchdowns on the season. That's what we wanted from Jamal Williams, what we thought we would get after season with Detroit last year. So I'm not putting him in the lineup. Wide receiver room, I like Chris Olave, 34 targets over the last 3 games. Michael Thomas, 7 or more targets in every game this season. So he's getting the opportunities. It's just getting a chance to convert those. He has not broken 70 yards in any game, but I do like him in this matchup this week. And then Taysom Hill at tight end, 3 rushing touchdowns last 2 games. He's also got 12 grabs over the last 3 games. He's played in quarterback. I don't know how if he's tight end eligible in your league, which he is in almost every league, you're playing him. And Aaron Johnson, just unfortunately, I know both of us liked him in the offseason. He's only got 2 targets last week, finished with 1 grab for 5 yards. In his 4 games played, he's got 8 total for 66. He's not relevant as long as Taysom Hill is getting the opportunities he's getting. So I'm playing Taysom Hill at tight end.
You know, I'm actually starting Taysom Hill. He's got tight end and quarterback designation on sleeper. So with the way the quarterback landscape is this week, I'm actually having to start Taysom Hill at quarterback. So any way he can score is going to benefit anybody today. And that's the great thing about him is that he's giving you production in so many different ways. So he almost is a must start just because you don't know where it's going to come from, but sooner or later he's going to get you some points. Let's move on. Los Angeles Rams 3-5 at the Green Bay Packers 2-5. Who wins? This is a tough one. But with no Matthew Stafford, the last report I read is that not likely to play. It would take a play. It would take a miracle for him to play. So I don't think he's going to play. So I got Green Bay finally getting back in the winning game finally getting back and with a win. I got him winning 24-17. How about you, Coach?
Yeah, I've got Packers 20, Los Angeles Rams 17. So we're close again.
Yeah, Packers are -3, so you're right on that. Over and under is 38.5. You took the under, I took the over. Let's get into the Los Angeles Rams. They're 14th in scoring, 17th in rushing, and 8th in passing on the year. Quarterback room, we just talked briefly about Matthew Stafford with the UCL thumb injury. Doesn't look like he's going to play. If that's the case, I'm not starting Brett Rippon, and it really hurts the recruiting room and the tight end room of recruiting. The receiver room and the tight end room, but at the running back room, I'm going to go with Darrell Henderson. I know he's the running back 29, while Freeman is the running back 23, but I just feel like Henderson's going to get something going today. And the only person else I feel like starting or comfortable starting is Cooper Kupp. Obviously, if you have Puka Nacua, he's a wide receiver 2, sometimes a wide receiver 1 for you in your lineup. So I'm not mad if you play him. Other side of the ball, Green Bay, man. I'll tell you, was there a bigger fan of Jordan Love coming in the year than me? I don't think so. And unfortunately, I've been nothing but disappointed with what I've seen so far. They're 21st in scoring on the year, 25th in rushing, and 21st in passing. So that offense really needs to get going. I feel like the things that we saw this week coming out of the Packer practice is Aaron Jones is looking better and better each week. Yeah. So I am starting Aaron Jones. I am not starting A.J. Dillon. And I think that vertically, I like what Christian Watt, his A-dot. I mean, they're targeting him down the field. They just haven't, for whatever reason, been able to connect. But I like Christian Watson in the receiver room. I'm not starting the other 2 in dubs or Jaden Reed. Even though I love Jaden Reed had 83 yards receiving last week, wasn't able to get in the end zone, but he's still someone that you should try and grab in Dynasty if you haven't done so. In tight end room, I like Luke Musgrave today. I feel like he's got a great opportunity. Tight ends have kind of had a lot of success against the Rams this year, so I'm playing Luke Musgrave. Moving on to anything you want to add to that game, Coach?
No, you hit it on the head, man. I'm right there with you on all those.
All right, Washington Commanders 3-5 at the New England Patriots 2-6. I got the Patriots winning 21-17 over the Commanders. Patriots are -3. Over and under is 40.5. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I got Patriots 24, Commanders 14. Look, I get the Sam Howell and how well he has played lately, but I've got some real concerns with Montez Sweat, Chase Young being traded away. They like to play a lot of quarter coverage, so you could do that when you felt like you could get there with 4. I don't think Washington can get there with 4 anymore. So I like the opportunity for Mac Jones and the Patriots to be able to slice up this Washington defense in the pass game.
Start sits for you.
Yeah, so I've got, in the quarterback room, Sam Howell, 40 or more pass attempts in 4 of the last 5 games, 10 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, thrown for 380 or more yards in 2 of the last 4. I'm going to ride the hot hand, so I'm playing Sam Howell. I don't really like the running back room. I think Brian Robinson is a potential flex play, but you're touchdown dependent there. Antonio Gibson, I expect a negative game script, so it could be an opportunity for him to get involved in the passing game, but I'm not really comfortable starting either one of those guys. Wide receiver room, New England's 29th in fantasy points per game, giving up the wide receiver position and giving up 9 touchdowns there. So I like Terry McLaurin. Jahan Dotson, 18 targets over the last 2 games is great to see. We talked about him earlier this year as a riser at one point and then a faller at one point. It looks like he's now back on the rise again, so that's good to see. So I'm okay if you play him. He is wide receiver 41 this week, but in deeper leagues with bye weeks, you may be in a position where you have to play him. And hey, sneaky play is Jamison Crowder in deeper leagues. 7 grabs on 7 targets last week for 95 yards in his first game back. So, and then tight end room, I like Logan Thomas. 10 grabs on 14 targets for 95 over the last 2. He's the security blanket there for Sam Howell. On the New England side, I already said it. I like Mac Jones. That has a lot to do with the type of coverage that Washington likes to play. They like to try to get home. You're going to have to commit a 5th guy to that rushing. You're not going to get there with 4, I think. So I think that's going to create opportunities and space for the wide receiver room to get the passing game going. So I like Mac Jones. I like Ramondre Stevenson. He has not been great. 73 yards on the ground and 19 carries over the last 2 games, but he has seen 16 targets. You are starting to see Zeke Elliott get a little bit more touches there. But I think this is a passing game for New England. Zeke Elliott, if you got to play him deeper formats, I get it. 18 carries over the last 2. He has found the end zone. As far as the wide receiver room goes, I like Demario Douglas this week. Juju Smith, Jalen Reagor, Devontae Parker, those guys haven't done anything all year long, and now you lose your top receiver in Kendrick Bourne. I think they're going to scheme ways for a guy like Demario Douglas to get the ball. 13 targets over the last 2 games. And then the tight end room, I think Hunter Henry, 9 targets over the last 3 games and 8 targets for Mike Gesicki. They're seeing a little bit of similarity there in terms of how they're being used, almost a 50-50 split. The problem is trying to pick which one's going to have the better game this week. I do think you're going to pick one of the 2, and you got to start one. It's Hunter Henry.
There you go. I like it. Hey, let's get to Hunter. We got a couple questions. You answered the first one off the air, but we'll go ahead and throw up the question and answer for everybody. But Hunter wants to know thoughts on James Cook long-term dynasty. He's the running back 20 in dynasty for me. Obviously, you're a little concerned with what's going on so far this year. Everyone talked about how this year he was going to get an uptick. He was going to be a 3-down back. Kind of concerning when they feel like they got to bring in a Leonard Fournette. They don't bring him in just to be nice to him and pay him some money to do nothing. So obviously when he gets active, he's going to have a role. But if I'm a James Cook roster manager, if I can get out with maybe a 2nd and a 3rd, I might do it. But because I think his value has kind of slid a little bit, I'm probably just going to hold. I mean, we're talking about a young back in an offense that's one of the top offenses in the NFL. So he's a hold for me, and you're just going to hope that you're going to see more production out of him long-term.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I think the tough part with James Cook, he's just not getting any of the goal line work, when they're in the red zone inside the 5, what we call the plus red zone. So that's a tough situation. I love the talent, and like you said, I saw him as a guy that could be a 3-down back, kind of in that Tony Pollard role. You don't want to see him getting 300 plus touches a year, but if you can get him at that 225, thought that was a good sweet spot for him. But we're just not seeing it. Now they're bringing Leonard Fournette because they didn't feel confident in the running back room there. So a little bit concerning, but I still believe in the talent. So I'm still holding on to James Cook personally, unless I can get good value for him in a trade.
All right, we got a start sit PPR from Chris. You answered it off the air, but we'll go ahead and do it. Jordan Addison or T. Higgins. You responded with Higgins, and I agree, especially with the quarterback situation in Minnesota. Higgins is a must start for me this week.
If it's Kirk Cousins, it's Jordan Addison for me and slam dunk. But with Jaron Hall, I can't. I've got to go with T. Higgins.
I don't know if it would be a slam dunk even
now.
with Kirk Cousins, but regardless, it's T. Higgins no matter where you look at it. All right, hey, let's move on to the next game. We've got Seattle 5-2 at the Baltimore Ravens 6-2. This is a fun game, and I'd love to see Seattle find a way to win. I just don't think it's going to happen. I really like the way the Ravens are playing. So I like Ravens 28, Seahawks 21. Ravens are a minus 5.5 favorite, and the over and under is 44.5. Who do you have in this one, Coach?
I've got Baltimore Ravens 26, Seattle 23. So I've got the over at 49 points. I think it's set at 44.5. And obviously the Seahawks will cover at 5.5. But Baltimore Ravens are going to win this one.
Okay, let's get in the starting sits for this quarterback room or for Seattle. Seattle's 11th in scoring with 24 points a game, 19th in rushing with 107.1, and 15th in passing. Geno Smith, Baltimore is pretty darn good facing the quarterback. So Geno Smith, he's probably a start. He's quarterback 13 for the week, probably for on the season, I should say. Probably a start, but that's a tough play to go out and win in Baltimore. So I don't expect much, but I get it if you're starting him. Running back room, I really like what we saw to Zach Charbonnet. You can see him getting more and more usage each week, but I'm still going with Kenneth Walker as the start out of the group. I want to see Charbonnet really kind of explode. What we've gotten so far is games like 11 carries for 54 yards. So, man, keep an eye on that room because it looks like Zach is making his push to get more playing time. At the wide receiver spot, I really like DK Metcalf today. Feel like he's going to do something to get you some points in the wide receiver room, but he's the only one I'm going to play with. And at the tight end spot, I'm not playing anyone because, as you've said multiple times on the show, Seattle's a team that has 2 or 3 guys each week that get a lot of play, so you really don't know who's going to pop and who's not. So I'm not starting any of the tight ends for Seattle. On the other side of the field, Lamar Jackson, quarterback 2 on the year, easy start. I love the way he's playing. And I can say the same thing about in the running back room right now with Gus Edwards. He's getting the volume and he's making things happen. And he's a guy that, man, you talk about zero running back type of team. He is a great guy. If you were able to pick him up in the 9th, 10th round I could have probably got him later because I thought of people with J.K. Dobbins coming back after his injury last year. We kind of thought this was going to be the J.K. Dobbins show, but Gus Edwards has been very nice for them. Wide receiver room, I'm going Zay Flowers. I feel like Zay Flowers is going to pop. Really like his matchup today and feel like they're going to find a way to get him the ball. And in the tight end spot for Baltimore, it's Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews is in there each and every week. Love his ability to kind of stretch the field in the middle of the field. So that's what I got. Anything you want to add on that game?
No, I think you nailed it, man. I don't have anything that I would do differently there. I've got all the same starts that you do.
All right, let's get to another question. James Hernandez, start 1 wide receiver. We've got at flex Addison, Tank Dell, Brown, or Stevenson. So I'm going to look at the receivers right now. Of those receivers, looks like I'm going with Brown. What about you? Where are you at? No, actually, I have Addison. Addison's my highest ranked guy, and that's in that group, and then I have Stevenson. So now you're going Addison or Stevenson. You already mentioned Washington's defense kind of gotten rid of some tough guys, so it might be Stevenson for me.
Yeah, it's Stevenson for me. And again, I usually take a look at a list like 4 guys and start taking away guys. So I would take away Addison because you've got Jaron Hall playing there. You've got Tank Dell. He has struggled over the last several weeks, and CJ Stroud has not played well the last couple of weeks after a fast start. And then Marquise Brown's got Clayton Tune. So you kind of look at that and go, man, I really don't love any of those, but Stevenson's a guy that I can see getting opportunities. He should see 15 to 20 touches this week and could find the end zone. So it's Stevenson for me.
All right. Hey, thank you, James. Hopes it works out. And we'd love to hear how it does work out. Send us a DM or tell us about us on our Wednesday show. Again, every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Actually, we're moving up 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time because of the change in time. So there we go. That's our Wednesday show. Unfortunately, we're not having one this week. I will be traveling across the country to go spend a few days in Nashville, but we'll be right back at it a week from Wednesday. Let's jump into our next game. Tampa Bay Buccaneers 3-4 at the Houston Texans, 3-4. Who wins? I got the Texans. I think they're going to bounce back. You brought up how last week Stroud hasn't played well, or hasn't played like he played early in the season the last couple of weeks, but I think he bounced back this week. I like the Texans 26, Buccaneers 20. Texans are -3 favorite. Over and under is 40. What says you on who wins this game, Coach?
I've got the exact same score, and I love it when we do that. I've got Houston 26, Tampa Bay 20. So Texans will cover the spread at -3, and we both got the over. I love it.
All right. Start and sit for this one. This is your game. So who do you like in the Tampa Bay offense?
Yeah, so we'll start there. So they're 27th in scoring on the year, 30th in running the football, and 17th in passing the rock. So Baker Mayfield's 37 or more pass attempts over the last 3 games. For me, only 58.7% completion rate, only 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Baker Mayfield needs to be a guy that you're calling a game for him to not make mistakes. I mean, he has to get 35, 40, 45 attempts per game. That's not the Baker Mayfield that I want to see. I'd rather see that Baker Mayfield between 27 to 32 pass attempts per game, but they're just unfortunately negative game script a lot. So if you have Baker Mayfield, his QB 18 on the week, I don't love him as a play this week, but I don't hate him either, so I get it. In the running back room, Houston's 18th in fantasy points per game allowed, and 11th in rushing, and 23rd in receiving yards. So I feel like this is a game where a guy like Rachaad White, who gets passing volume, is going to be a guy that can play. He's struggled in the run game recently, but I like his opportunity in the passing game, so he's a start for me. Wide receiver room, Houston's 4th in fantasy points per game, 6th in receiving yards, and 9th in receiving yards allowed, with only 2 touchdowns against in terms of wide receivers. But if you got Mike Evans, 5 touchdowns in 7 games played this year, he's got a touchdown in back-to-back games. You're going to play him every week. Chris Godwin, 5 or more grabs in every game but 1 this season. I'm going to play Chris Godwin because I like the volume there. He's seen double-digit targets in 2 of the last 4. In the tight end room, Cade Otton. To say Houston struggles against tight ends would be a massive understatement. They are 30th in fantasy points per game at the tight end position, 26th in receiving yards, and 30th in receptions allowed. So I like Cade Otton this week. As far as Houston goes, on the other side, C.J. Stroud under 200 passing yards for 2 consecutive weeks, but he is QB9 this week. That's because you've got Clayton Tunes and the Jaron Halls and Taylor Heineke's, and you can keep going. So he's a guy you're probably going to play because he does have a QB1 upside this week. In the running back room, Dameon Pierce is out. It's an opportunity for Devin Singletary at RB27. So he's a low-end or high-end RB3, low-end RB2. I like Devin Singletary this week because there aren't really any other options in that backfield. Wide receiver room, Nico Collins. I'm going to continue to play him. He has struggled with just 8 grabs over the last 2 weeks for 100 yards, has not found the end zone. I'm not as bullish on Tank Dell or Noah Brown this week, but I would not be surprised to see Noah Brown get in the end zone with Robert Woods out. He's my anytime touchdown scorer sleeper pick for this week. And then Dalton Schultz at tight end. I expect him he scored in 3 of the last 4 games with 60-plus receiving yards in 2 of those games. So I like Dalton Schultz this week against the Tampa Bay defense at 16th in receiving yards allowed and 15th in fantasy points per game in the tight end position.
I like it. I'm going to go a little different, though. I think the anytime touch, and I think Tank Dell does get in the end zone today. But, hey, we'll find out.
I'd be okay with that, too.
All right, hey, let's move on to the next game. Arizona Cardinals 1-7 at the Cleveland Browns 4-3. Who wins? I got the Browns winning pretty easily, 27-13. Browns are a -8.5 favorite. Over and under is 37.5. Tough matchup for a rookie quarterback having to go against that Cleveland defense, Coach.
Yeah, you've got more belief in Clayton Tune in this matchup than I do. I've got him at 9 points, kicking 3 field goals, and I think that's, probably giving him a little too much credit too. I've got Cleveland winning 24-9.
Okay, let's move on to the Arizona offense. Arizona is 22nd in the league in scoring, 18.9 points a game, 4th in rushing, 137.8, and 28th in passing. Cleveland is one of the top defenses in the league, so I don't like. I mean, look. I'm starting Clayton Tune and Scott Fishbowl. We've already talked about the buys. You've got quarterbacks galore on bye this week with Lawrence, with Brock Purdy, with Goff, and I can't remember who the 4th one is, but that's a big hurt when you got those guys on your team. But I'm still not starting Clayton Tune if I don't have to. Running back room, it looks like DeMarcado is out this week after getting most of the volume the last few weeks. So I'm not interested in playing Keontae Ingram or Damian Williams against that Cleveland defense. And wide receiver room, we don't like Clayton Tune, but Marquise Brown's a guy who seems to find a way to make plays. So I'm playing Marquise Brown, hoping that he pops on a play or two. And I'm probably also playing with Trey McBride. What he's done over the last few weeks with no Zach Ertz has been really nice to see. But you just have such a terrible matchup against Cleveland, number one team against tight ends, and so it's going to be a tough go for him. But I still like Trey McBride this week. Other side of the ball, looks like Deshaun Watson is going to give it a go. Cleveland is 13th in offense and scoring 22 points a game, second in rushing, even without Nick Chubb for most of the year, but 30th in passing. So hopefully Deshaun Watson play a little bit better, but I'm probably not starting him. He's quarterback 25 for the week, but Deshaun Watson, I get it if you have to play him. Running back room, I like Jerome Ford today. I feel like Jerome Ford gets back. He kind of has been dealing with a little bit of ankle injury, and I think we see him kind of reassert himself in the offense. The receiver room, Amari Cooper hasn't given you the production that you hoped for this year, but we already talked about how that Cleveland passing attack is only averaging 180 yards a game. Kind of tough to be fantasy relevant when you don't get a lot of volume in the yard category. But I still like Amari Cooper going against Arizona today. And at tight end room, tight end 12, David Njoku, I'm starting him as well. Anything you would differ on, Coach?
Yeah, it's funny. Trey McBride, I love Trey McBride, and I think when you have a rookie quarterback like Clayton Tune, you're trying to simplify the playbook. I think Trey McBride gives you enough in the middle of the field and potentially in the tight end screen game to pepper him with some volume. So I like to play there with Trey McBride for sure. And I certainly hope that Jerome Ford is the guy. I hope you're right there. I can certainly use him. I've got several shares of Jerome Ford on my fantasy league. So I love to see him go off this week.
Sometimes I pick must start on guys who I must start due to whatever reason. So there we go. Jerome Ford. I'm just willing it to happen. Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next game. This is your breakdown. Indianapolis Colts 3-5 at the Carolina Panthers 1-6. I like the Colts today, 24-20, like what they've been able to do. Their running game has been pretty damn impressive this year. Whatever they're dialing up, it's been working in the running game. So I like the Colts winning 24-20. Panthers are a plus 2.5 for the odds, and over-under is 43.5. Coach, how do you like this game, or how do you see this game going?
Yeah, I've got Colts 24, Panthers 19, so we're only off by 1 point there. I've got the under. I think it's an interesting game. Colts are sixth in scoring, ninth in rushing, and 13th in passing, but 268.3 yards passing over the last 3 games. To me, that's hello, Gardner Minshew, right? That's a system they're going to run with Minshew. So I've got him as a play this week. He's QB 12 as the rankings are updated this morning, but Carolina's 11th in fantasy points per game and 4th in passing yards allowed. So they have been tough against quarterbacks. They've given up 10 touchdown passes. I think Gardner Minshew has enough volume in the passing game to be relevant. In the running back room, I love Jonathan Taylor. We've seen him slowly get a little bit more touches. I think could be a boom week for him, as Carolina is 31st in fantasy points per game to running backs, 29th in rushing yards, and 9th in receiving yards allowed. They've given up 14 total touchdowns to the running back position, 12 of those on the ground. That speaks highly for me in terms of Jonathan Taylor. And you can play Zach Moss if you have him as well. He'll get some volume. They've proven that, but I think it's a breakout game for Jonathan Taylor. Wide receiver room, I like Michael Pittman and at wide receiver 14 this week. And I like Josh Downs. He is battling a knee injury, but if he goes, he sees enough volume to be relevant. It's just what he does with that volume. So I do like Josh Downs. I'm staying away from Alec Pierce. Tight end room, I'm not playing Kylan Granson or Andrew Ogletree. They've only given up 2 touchdowns to tight ends all season. They're second in receiving receptions allowed at the tight end position, second in receiving yards allowed. So I'm not playing the tight ends there. On the other side of the ball, Carolina struggled to score. They're 25th in scoring on the year, 24th running the football, and 24th passing the football. There's not a whole lot to get excited about in this Carolina offense. But the Colts are 29th in fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks. So they don't do well against quarterback position. That could bode well for Bryce Young. He is QB 15, again, because of the amount of quarterbacks are out this week. He's a guy that you could play if you have to. And then Chuba Hubbard, I think this is a good game for him. And he's 28th defending in fantasy points per game against running backs, 26th in rushing yards, and 26th in receiving yards allowed, giving up 12 touchdowns running back position. I think Chuba Hubbard finds the end zone this week. In the wide receiver room, Adam Thielen, we say it every week. He's now wide receiver 7 going into this week. He's a must play. I think with DJ Shark battling the elbow injury, he's questionable. Looks like he's probably going to play. But I think Jonathan Mingo could be a splash play this week. He's another guy I like because of the return and investment I can get on an anytime touchdown with Jonathan Mingo if I'm really trying to win big. And that's it for me. I think, again, Adam Thielen to me is just at some point you feel like the wheels got to fall off with how old this guy is, but consistently
Right.
week in and week out with a rookie quarterback, regardless of matchup, he finds targets, he finds enough room to find space and get open, and he converts those to receptions and touchdowns. So you got to play Adam Thielen.
Yeah, he's just been a guy that you can tell that he's a veteran who's taking care of his body, and it takes a lot of time and effort to perfect the craft. And he's been great for Bryce Young on the year.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next game. New York Giants 2-6 at the Las Vegas Raiders 3-4. Obviously, we know there's been a hell of a lot of moves this week with the Raiders. They fire their GM, they fire the coach, they fired Jimmy Garoppolo. So now we'll talk about another quarterback. Now we get Aiden O'Connell in there, so we'll see how that goes. But I like the Giants winning 20-17. Raiders are minus 1.5 favorite. Over and under is 37.5. So I have the under. How do you see this one going, Coach?
Yeah, I've got Giants 23, Raiders 14. Daniel Jones is back. I think Brian Daboll, a lot of question marks about what they're doing offensively, and I get Darren Waller's also out. But I think Giants put it together this week on the road against the Raiders. I just don't trust Aiden O'Connell, and there's a lot of issues with the firing of Josh McDaniels and everything that's gone on there that you've touched on. So I've got Giants winning on the road as well.
I wouldn't be surprised because Antonio Pierce has taken over. He's gone into the locker room and seems to kind of righten the ship a little bit. You read a lot of reports coming about how Oakland, I still have them in Oakland, but how Las Vegas kind of was like, golly, it's kind of nice to have, the presence of the coach they just fired no longer in the locker room. A lot of walking around in eggshells. So I also wouldn't be surprised if Las Vegas kind of really rallies and plays for the new coach, but I guess we'll find out. Let's go with over start and sits. First for the New York Giants offense. They're 32nd in the league in scoring at 11.9 points a game, 15th in rushing, but that has a lot to do with the fact that, Saquon's been banged up most of the year, and 32nd in passing with 155 yards a game. Quarterback room, Daniel Jones is back. I'm playing Daniel Jones. I feel like one of the things that I like this week is when he got back on the practice field, Saquon came up, gave him a big hug. I feel like they all want to start. I mean, it sounds ridiculous to say this, but I feel like this is a big time for them and they want to start playing better. And I feel like Daniel Jones will play better. So I am playing Jones. Running back room, I'm playing Barkley. It's hard. This wide receiver room is tough, and especially now with no Waller. So I don't know how or who I'm going to play I'm not going to play anyone in the wide receiver tight ends. Robinson is one of those splash plays you hope you get something out of. And, usually, though, he gets a lot of volume, but not a lot of yards. So I'm not playing anybody other than Jones or Barkley unless I have to. Daniel Bellinger's now in there. You talked about tight end being out now for another hamstring injury. So that hurts, but I'm still not playing Bellinger this week. And on the other side of the ball, the Raiders, another team that's really struggled at the offense, 30th in score, 11.9, 32nd in rushing, 22nd in passing. Quarterback room for the Raiders, I'm not starting Aiden O'Connell. I'm glad that he's getting an opportunity to play. It gives the Raiders an opportunity to see if they actually have anybody in him, but I'm not ready to play him. I am going to play the running back 10 of the year, Josh Jacobs. I feel comfortable playing him. I feel like they're going to get something going. And I'm always playing Davante Adams. I realize that we're not getting what we've gotten from him in the past, but it's hard for me not to play that guy. And I'm not playing Jacoby Myers, and I'm not playing Michael Mayer. So the only guy that I really feel comfortable playing for the Cowboys, for the wide receivers, would be Davante Adams. Anything you want to add?
No, I think Jacoby Myers is an interesting point. He's wide receiver 27 going the week. So you've got him at a basically a low end RB2 or high end wide receiver 3. Sorry. It just hasn't been there for him. And with Aiden O'Connell starting, I have some concerns there. But yeah, to your point, I mean, you're playing Davante Adams. I don't care who the matchup is. I don't care what his numbers have been. I think Antonio Pierce brings a lot of energy to this team from a coaching perspective, obviously defensive background, but I think he knows you've got to find ways, and you're going to go to the OC and say, hey, look, we're getting the ball to Davante Adams figured out.
Yep. Now here's a game I think you're pretty excited for, and I know everyone should be. That's Dallas Cowboys 5-2 at the Philadelphia Eagles 7-1. Who wins? I got the Eagles winning 31-28. Eagles are a -3 favorite, and the over and under is 46.5. You going with your heart or you going with your brain, Coach?
Well, we're here for the people, right? We're here to help people win matchups. So I'm taking the Eagles 27, Cowboys 23 at home in Philly. So Eagles cover at -3. And then, of course, I've got the over just like you do at 46.5. I've got them scoring 50 points combined. So as far as the starts go, look, Dallas Cowboys are second in scoring offensively. They've got their 11th in rushing at 117.1, but just 85 a game over the last three. That's worth noting because you're going up against a very good defensive front in Philadelphia. They're 16th in the passing, 220.9. That's obviously gone up over the last three. As we've seen Dak no throw for 300 yards last week, but Philadelphia, this is where Dallas has a chance to steal the game in Philly. Philadelphia's 28th in fantasy points per game and 28th in passing yards allowed to quarterbacks. They've given up 16 touchdown passes to only 4 interceptions. So that's where I think Dak Prescott, if they continue to do what they've done the last couple of weeks, get your wide receiver one involved in CD Lamb and let Dak Prescott play in the passing game. He's 8-3 against the Eagles in his career. He's thrown for 576 yards and 5 touchdowns and 1 pick over the last 2 games. And his numbers against the Eagles, I can't remember what the stat was over the last 3. It's like 340 passing yards. So you've got to continue to rely on that passing game there. And the running back room, Philadelphia is the opposite. First in fantasy points per game, first in rushing yards allowed. They do give up receptions and yards to the passing game, but they've only given up 3 touchdowns all year to running backs. So Tony Pollard to me is not a must start. But if you have him, you're probably playing him. The key is you've got to get him more involved in the passing game. So he only saw 1 target last week. Wide receiver room, 19 grabs on 21 targets for 275 yards and 2 scores over the last 2 weeks. CD Lamb, you're playing him. He's playing lights out right now as they have moved him from more motion and more playing slot to playing the X receiver on the weak side in one-on-one matchups, reading that backside safety and allowing that putting that player in conflict and Dak's making the proper read off of that. So I think Brandon Cooks has got an opportunity to score in his 3rd straight game this week. I don't see a lot of yards and receptions for him. He's got an opportunity to score. I'm not playing Michael Gallup. And believe it or not, I'm not playing, Jake Ferguson is tight end 6 this week because of bye weeks and what he did, 4 grabs for 47 yards and a score last week, but he's only got 1 game over 50 yards on the season.
Yeah.
Now the Eagles have given up 4 touchdowns to the tight end position. They're 17th in fantasy points per game against. I don't see it as a game for Jake Ferguson. I'm super excited that he's a must start for me, but if you have him, you're probably playing him. On the other side of the ball for the Eagles, against they're 3rd in scoring, they're 7th in running the football, 132.3 yards per game, but just like Dallas, only 79.3 yards rushing per game over the last 3. They have struggled to run the football as well. They are 7th in passing. Dallas is 4th in fantasy points per game allowed to quarterback position. They've given up 9 touchdowns, but also have 9 interceptions. We know Deron Bland's got 3 pick sixes this year, but I'm still playing Jalen Hurts. 35 or more pass attempts in 5 of 6 games, 275 or more passing yards in each of those games. So but 5 interceptions over the last 4. He's got to protect the football, but I'm still playing Jalen Hurts. I'm playing DeAndre Swift. Dallas is 10th in fantasy points per game to running backs. And I'm playing A.J. Brown. 6 consecutive games of 125 yards, 5 touchdowns.
That's crazy. I saw that the other day. I was like, that guy is just playing really well, obviously.
He's lights out. So you're playing A.J. Brown. Dallas has got to figure out a way to keep him honest, keep him under 100 yards. Then Davante Smith, I'm playing him. I think he plays a secondary role. If Dallas rolls coverage to A.J. Brown, I think Davante Smith could have a game this week. Would not be surprised to see him see the end zone. I'm not playing Julio Jones. I get he scored last week. I get it, but I'm not putting him in my lineup. So I don't have him on any rosters. Didn't go out and spend any fab to get him. And then, of course, I'm playing Dallas Goedert, who was tight end 4 this week. Dallas is 20th in fantasy points per game allowed to tight ends and 4 touchdowns allowed. So I like Dallas Goedert this week.
Should be a fun game. That's one of the better 1 o'clock matchups you're going to see. Usually they say that for a Sunday night game, but that's a great game for us to get to watch in the afternoon. But let's move on to the Sunday night football game. We got Buffalo Bills 5-3 at the Cincinnati Bengals 4-3. Who wins? I like the Bengals. I'll tell you, I feel like this is the Bengals we all expected at the beginning of the year. Burrow is obviously healthy now, playing great. So I like the Bengals winning 32-27. Bengals are a -1.5 favorite. Over and under is 49.5. Who do you think is going to win this one, Coach?
Yeah, I've got Bengals 31, Buffalo 30. I think Bengals win it at home. I like the way that they're playing. Joe Burrows obviously is fully over the calf strain. You see him run the ball a little bit more and have a little bit more ability in the pocket. So I like I like the Bengals at home. Josh Allen's turning the ball over. I think they've got some question marks with the Buffalo Bills, especially in the run game. So I like Cincinnati as well.
All right, let's jump into these start sets. First for the visitor, Buffalo Bills. Buffalo is fourth in scoring in the NFL, 27.8 points a game, 14th in rushing at 113, and fourth in passing, 263 yards. Quarterback room, if you have Josh Allen, you're starting him.
Yeah.
You want to see what you want to see out of Josh Allen today is limit the interceptions and kind of just make some things happen with his legs. You saw him run a little bit more last week, so when he does that, that offense is just a lot more better. Running back room, we talked about James Cook earlier with a question regarding his value in Dynasty. Running back 16 on the week. So he is a play. You can play. Everyone talks about Latavius Murray is seeing goal line work. So if you have to play him, you may be able to vulture a running back off a touchdown from Cook. But I'm not playing if I don't have to. And Leonard Fournette's not quite ready to get in the game yet. Wide receiver room, I feel really good about two plays here. I like Stephon Diggs and I like Gabe Davis today. I feel like it's going to be a game that's going to be back and forth, and I see both those guys being able to produce. And same thing goes for the tight end 5 for the week, and that's Dalton Kincaid. You saw what he did last week in the Thursday night game, finally got in the end zone. He's starting to look like the type of player that they talked about all during the summer. On the other side of the ball with Cincinnati, they're 24th in scoring at 18.7 points a game. However, the last 3, they're up to 27.3. So you see that offense starting to really step up. They're 29th in rushing, but again, uptick is improving with the improved play. And now for much of the year, they were down on the low at passing, but the last 3 weeks they passed for 240 yards a game. So I love the quarterback. We're playing Joe Burrow. We're playing Joe Mixon because of the volume. He's getting an incredible amount of share back there. He's pretty much all you see getting the ball. So I like Joe Mixon this week. And I like both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Essentially, this is a game. If you got fantasy relevance players, you're playing them in this one. I am not playing Irv Smith, though. I'm going to find another tight end. I don't think Irv Smith has shown enough this year to make me want to play him. You good with these calls there, Coach?
Yeah, I like Joe Mixon too. You mentioned that Buffalo's 24th in fantasy points per game to running backs, and have given up 5 rushing touchdowns. So I like Joe Mixon this week.
All right, let's get to our last game of the week, Monday Night Football. Los Angeles Chargers 3-4 at the New York Jets 4-3. I got the Jets winning, Coach. I like the Jets winning 21-17. I feel like Zach Wilson has been improving in his play, so I like them eking out a win today. How about you?
Yeah, I've got the Jets too. I had the Chargers. I've got the Jets winning now 23-21. And I think the difference there is Breece Hall. I like what they're doing in the run game there with Breece Hall. I like how he's getting more volume and he's getting utilized in the passing game. So I see the Jets winning this one at home and getting to 5-3, which I think is really important. And Brandon Staley, if that happens, he drops to 3-5. There's a lot of guys out there that would love to see Brandon Staley get let go. I know that my daughter's boyfriend Cam is definitely a big proponent of that. He's not a Staley fan at all, but as far as it's been brutal. And he's supposed to be a defensive coach. Like that's the funny part. It's the defense is the problem more so than the offense. But for the Chargers, they're 9th in scoring this year, 22nd running the football. Now they didn't have Austin Eckler for a few games early on. 6th in passing, no surprise with Justin Herbert. The Jets have given up 12. They're 12th in fantasy points per game allowed to the quarterbacks, only 3rd in passing yards. They've got 8 touchdowns allowed, but also have converted 8 interceptions. But they are 32nd in rushing yards allowed to quarterbacks. Justin Herbert's not a guy you're calling design run plays for, but they play a little bit of man coverage. I think if the DBs are turning their back, there's an opportunity for Herbert to run and get a first down. Would not be surprised to see that this week. I'm definitely playing Justin Herbert. In the running back room, Jets are 25th in fantasy points per game allowed, 21st in rushing yards allowed, and 27th in receiving yards allowed. That bodes very well for Austin Eckler, so I like him this week. Wide receiver room, Jets are 1st in fantasy points per game. The wide receiver room, 1st in receiving yards allowed, and 3rd in receptions allowed. They've only given up 1 touchdown to wide receivers. So you really don't play anybody against the Jets, but I'm playing Keenan Allen against anybody. So Keenan Allen is a start, not a great matchup, but Allen still gives you wide receiver 1 upside every week. Sleeper pick, Darius Davis out getting more yards than Quentin Johnston this week. I would not be surprised to see it. I think there's an opportunity for him to scheme him great in the return game, but to scheme him in the wide receivers and he breaks one. I think there's an opportunity for Darius Davis, but he's not playing. I'm not starting him, but I would not be surprised to see it. Tight end room, Jets are 25th in fantasy points per game allowed to tight ends. They've given 5 touchdowns this year. That bodes well for both Gerald Everett and Donald Parham. I know Everett is cleared to play this week. Parham's been involved. They're both in the top 30 as tight end, with Gerald Everett as a mid tight end 2 and Parham giving you a tight end 3 return. So I like those guys this week. And then for the Jets, I'm not. Zach Wilson this week, he's QB 23. The Chargers are 32nd in fantasy points per game and 32nd in passing yards allowed to quarterbacks, giving up 12 touchdowns. So if you've got Zach Wilson, he's not a bad start this week. And with Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall, and Tyler Conklin, I'm not opposed to playing Zach Wilson this week. Breece Hall is a must start for me. And then Garrett Wilson, of course. Chargers are 30th in fantasy points per game allowed to wide receivers. So I'm starting Garrett Wilson. And then I'm starting Tyler Conklin. Chargers 29th in fantasy points per game allowed, 28th in receiving yards, and 25th in receptions allowed to tight end. So I expect Tyler Conklin to eat and work the middle of the field this week.
Well, that's a heck of a breakdown there, Coach. I'm looking forward to that game. I do think we're going to see more out of the Jets on the offensive side. I hope the maturation of Zach continues. And like I think it was just said, a friend or a family member who's hoping Staley gets the act soon. I'm always rooting for a Charger loss just so we can get some changes possibly in there. And let's look at the last question before we move on. What's going on with Aaron Jones? Do I play him or Brian Robinson in PPR flex this week? What's going on with Aaron Jones is first and foremost, he hasn't been healthy. First game of the year when he caught that little slant across the middle, took it for a touchdown, kind of pulled the hammy. He's not been able to really come back from it since. And then that offense, when he has been back, that offense has struggled so much. They haven't been able to get anything done. So that's a big reason why he's not relevant as we currently stand. So if I had to play him or Brian Robinson, it's definitely Brian Robinson for me.
Yeah, see, we're going to differ. We're not going to help Jace out here, right? So I see Aaron Jones. This is that bounce back week for Aaron Jones. I think they've allowed him to heal up and get fresh. I think AJ Dillon doesn't give you a ton. So I think this week is a week for Aaron Jones that we see him break out a little bit. I would not be surprised to see him get 80 to 100 total yards and potentially find the end zone this week.
Well, then, Jace, if you got to make a decision whether you're going to listen to Coach or you're going to listen to me, I would definitely listen to Coach. I'm on about 3 hours of sleep, so I think Coach is the one they listen to. So go ahead and play Aaron Jones and hope for the bounce back game and that offense gets better. Coach, appreciate you letting me move the time up a half an hour so I can go out and play a golf game, and hope you have a great day, and go Cowboys.
Hey, you too, man. I love to see it, man. Let's get the upset win in Philly. Appreciate you,
guys have a great day, and hope we were able to help, and hope you guys have a great day in fantasy.